Hello, hello everyone. It's John Jenkins, and I wanted to bring you a video today. I back in 2000 and let me see. I want to say 2013 or uh, yeah, I think it was 2013. I was wondering. Uh, I was wondering, you know, well, I wondered this for so long why did the Japanese team up with Germany during World War II? It seemed like a non sequitur, you know. I mean, they really had nothing in common, you know. They were so far away geographically. They didn't share the same language or even the same. I mean, they weren't even, you know, the Japanese language wasn't even derived from the Phoenician alphabet. You know, it wasn't a romantic language. Uh, the Japanese and the Germans had their separate histories, their own heroes, their own versions of history, which were pretty much isolated. So you know, why would the Japanese reach over all of Asia and Europe to team up with Germany and Italy? And so I got tired of wondering. I went to the library and I got this book called Modern Japan. There was a subtitle, but the main title was Modern Japan, and um, it chronicled Japanese history from about the 15th century AD. It didn't go, you know, it didn't go to the actual founding of Japan. That's way back, but you know, obviously not as old as China, but you know, it started in the 15th century BC, at the 15th century AD, as in the 1400s. And you know, I wanted to know something about World War II, but you know, my habit was that I had to read the entire book to find out one thing. So I wasn't gonna skip like when you're in college. They say skip to the good part and then ignore the rest. Well, when I read books, I have to read the entire thing just to get the context. I mean, perhaps, and there's a good reason for that, is that perhaps a reason why the Japanese teamed up with Germany has something, maybe it has something to do with earlier. Maybe, you know, maybe there was a possibility that, you know, there was cultural exchange between the Japanese and the Germans back in the 1500s, but that's not what happened. I read through the book. It got to the World War II section, and basically I discovered that uh, the reason why Japan originally teamed up with Germany was because they had what was called the Anti-Comintern Pact. And basically, what it means is that they teamed up because Russia was spreading communism all throughout Europe and Asia, and the Americas, communism was spreading like wildfire, and people were even more afraid of communism they were uh, than they were of capitalism because communism just had a really bad reputation. So then basically the Japanese had their own Red Scare, just like in the United States, and that scared them into teaming up with Germany, to pool the resources so that they could come together and fight communism. So that was how they originally got together. And, so when it came time to fight in World War II, they had already had the alliance, not the alliance, but an alliance with each other. And it just sort of, you know, it was just sort of grandfathered in, you know. So that, for those of you who are wondering, that's the reason why the Japanese originally teamed up with Germany was to fight communism. Um, and so, at the same time I was reading, at the same time I was reading the book about the history of China. And China under Mao was a communist country, and they had 80 million people die under Mao's rule. 80 million people died of 80 million people died because of Mao's policies, and so you know so that lets you know why people were so afraid. I mean, perhaps perhaps because Mao didn't even come onto the scene. Mao didn't even come onto the scene until after World War II. So you know, uh, so as far as I remember, because the yeah, from what I remember, Mao was because didn't yeah Mao was definitely I had to catch myself because Mao was definitely more recent. I always forget when he was in charge, but it certainly wasn't in World War II. It was certainly afterwards. Uh, so um, I say that because he met with Nixon. So how could he meet with Nixon if he was in power during World War II? So and then that uh, 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 the Korean War, 1952. That was definitely after World War II. So that was when we were trying when communist China was trying to spread its influence into Korea. So yeah. But anyway, it it seeing the effects. It might not have been that they saw the effects of communism. It probably could have been that China was their rival, and that China was an economic rival, and they were actually trying to invade China, so they didn't want to be seen as being changed by China. Uh, so yeah, they probably didn't want to be seen as being changed by China. So uh, uh, you know, uh, obviously, well, I mean, millions starved in Russia under communism, but that might not have been the entire story as to why the whole world was so afraid of communism. Because even under communism, the powerful people stayed in power. I mean, the serfs might have suffered, but the powerful still stayed in power. So, yeah, and you know, so that was the result of my research. I never even knew. They never even taught us in school that 80 million Chinese were killed as a result of Mao's decisions, and 80 million Chinese died, as in starved to death, died of hunger, were murdered by the regime, eaten by cannibals, you know, uh, things of that nature. So yeah, just two little pieces of information, and I know some Mao experts are gonna come along and tell me exactly when Mao got into power. It, I know that he had that really long fight with Chiang Kai-shek, and the United States. It wasn't until the United States started, picking sides. It wasn't until the United States started picking sides that it became official that Mao was a leader. You know, it wasn't until we turned our back on Chiang Kai-shek that Mao became the official leader. So I know it couldn't have been, I know it couldn't have been during World War II because you know the Chinese had the sort of the nationalists versus the communists, for many decades, and so it could. Man, I'll check it out later, but yeah. Uh, so have a nice day. Bye.